Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in today. We have an important show today. We're going to touch on some very important topics for our community. We're going to start off with Ebb and Flow introducing our guest. So,
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We have a very informative show tonight, and we'll start off by introducing our first guest, Mr. Cedric Holliman. He is a magna cum laude graduate of Howard University and a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He received a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and relocated to California to become a member of the technical staff of Hughes Aircraft Company. After a layoff, he pursued the financial planning arena and became a licensed California insurance agent and a registered representative with the National Association of Security Dealers, NASD. He also holds a license in real estate. Mr. Holloman was licensed in the ministry at Faithful Central Bible Church by Bishop Kenneth C. Omer, and he has worked as a decision counselor, conducted monthly services at the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, and conducted various classes for new and existing members. He has served at the Beta Psi Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity as vice president, financial secretary, treasurer, director of educational activities, and chaplain. So, welcome, Mr. Cedric. We're excited
Thank
to
you for
have
having me.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Um,
Oh, yes, I just
All
applause.
right.
That's great.
so, you can start off by explaining a little bit more about yourself, as well as telling us about the information that you came to provide us with tonight, please.
Okay, tonight we're going to be talking a lot about, are you future focused? With all the things that's been going on with COVID, all the things that are going around the country, gets people distracted and gets them away from thinking about their futures. So we want people to be more future focused, thinking about planning for their retirements, planning for how they want to end up in their older age, how they want to spend their later years. Well, your later years are going to have to be financed because you want to substitute your job for some income that's passive, right? That you don't have to work for. And my goal is to help people get that income flow going and try to get it on a tax-free basis so they can get the income, not have to give the government anything, and live their best lives in those years. Because we can still be productive in our later years. A lot of people are, but it's still going to take money to do it. Also, recently, I spent a weekend with the Alzheimer's Association. My mom had Alzheimer's. She passed away at age 99. And I found out you're going to also need, some services that you might have to pay for. We have programs we put together to help you in case that ever befalls you, you can have the money to be taken care of. So those are the things we want people to focus on and we're going to discuss tonight.
Great. Thank you so much for that information. So, next up, we have Mrs. Lynn E. Smith. She is a level marriage and family therapist with over 20 years of outreach and advocacy experience in the greater Los Angeles and metro Atlanta area. She fully understands the importance of working with the conditions of community for one common goal. Lynn's overachieving is to assist single parent homes with meeting particular needs during their time of crisis and transition. Through the years, she has been awarded the opportunity to have worked closely with various faith and community based organizations. Lynn is embarking on a new journey, becoming a writer and author. Welcome to the writing world, Lynn. Thanks so much for being on the show tonight. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself and give the audience the information, please.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you again, Q, Drea, Miss Ebony, and pleasure meeting you, Cedric. Thank you for having me tonight. Just to kind of give you a brief synopsis, Thank you, Ebony, for introducing me. But just to elaborate a little bit more, I've been connected to outreach all of my life. This is something that I honestly, wholeheartedly believe that I am definitely passionate about and purpose to do. And because I do have grassroots within certain communities, born and raised in Inglewood, California, at one particular time, I've served many years in the greater Los Angeles areas, working with a lot of underprivileged and underserved families, people that are transitioning from homelessness, domestic violence shelters, and those that were actually transitioning from being incarcerated as well. So, my overarching goal is to just emphasize the importance of community and family and resources and making sure that they are available to everybody. We all see the same things that's going on in this world and in society, and it's not always favorable for us. So, it's important that when we do have the knowledge, and that's why I'm so grateful for Drea, because she's so resourceful and she always makes sure that she brings the information and gets us involved as friends and family. So again, thank you for this opportunity. And my primary goal and focus is to make sure that we know what tools and resources are available to make sure that we are whole and healthy in every aspect of our lives. And I firmly believe that that's what a part of prosperity is, not just materially, but making sure that every aspect of your life is solid. And that's it for now.
Well, we definitely agree with the information you've provided so far. We're grateful for your service in the community and everything you've
Thank you.
done. And we're very excited to have you here. So I'll pass the mic back to you, Miss Drea.
I want to thank you guys for sharing that. And I believe that edification is very important, and knowing that exactly what you do and how we introduce each other is very important because we don't want to be misinformed. So thank you so much, Ebony, for giving that brief synopsis of who they are, and then you guys going on to explain more in detail. So we have a couple of questions we want to start off with. So we're going to start with the first question for Cedric. Where is my questions? So we talked earlier a little bit about the way we're going with the Social Security and where it's going, and it's not the same as it was before. So can you touch on a little bit about that? Your mic is off.
Okay, there we go. There's a lot been going on in the media lately and over the years about Social Security. Um, and a lot of people really don't understand how Social Security works. Social Security was never a pay in, get out system. It's a pay as you go system. And when we started Social Security years ago, it was basically 30, 40 people who were working. We're going to support one person in retirement. And that person in retirement usually didn't live that long. Maybe died if they retired at 65, they might have died at 70 or 75 years old. Now people are living longer, and then the demographics have changed. The baby boomer generation is retiring now, and now the numbers are down to they were down to 3-to-1 a couple of years ago, and now they're getting less than that. So what that means is 2 to 3 people are working to support one person. So that's why they've had to raise Social Security tax over the years to keep the numbers right. Now, there's more than enough money in the system right now, but if the demographics keep going like they're going, the government's going to have to put a big influx of cash into the system to keep it viable. And so expect a fight over that in the near future. The politicians are going to be fighting about it. They want to cut it. They want to do different things, but that's a staple that a lot of people depend on. Some people, that's all they have. And so that's why it's important that system remain viable, but you need to understand how it works. And I notice people don't really look to see what their Social Security numbers are until they're older. You should be tracking them as you're working to see what your benefits are going to be, and let that be the bedrock of what you're going to be getting in retirement, and then you build on top of that. So you want to have 3 sources of income when you retire. Social Security should be one, and then we're responsible for putting together the other 2. But that just gives you a little bit of background on Social Security. They're going to be wanting to fight over the next couple of years. So make sure if you're following politicians, you vote for people who are going to keep that system viable.
Thank you so much for that information. Our topic tonight is are you future focused? So, a lot of our questions are going to be discussing things that we need that's important for our future. And the next question, we're going to send it back to Evan Flo, and she's going to ask the next question.
All right. Thanks so much for passing the mic back to me. And my question to you, Mr. Cedric, is what would you suggest to a person that has limited income to start with becoming financially literate and insured? Like, it might be a bit difficult for them being that their finances are limited, but we want to encourage everyone to have insurance. So, what is something that a low income person can do to get themselves insured?
Well, we have a saying in the financial arena: you always have to pay yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
So most people put the bills first, and then once they pay the bills, there's no money left. So we say make yourself the first bill that you pay, even if it's just $10, $25, whatever it is. You're working for you. Even if you have a job, you work for yourself. So if you're working for yourself, why should you pay everybody else before you pay your main person, which is yourself? So that's the first thing I would say. Make sure you take something, set it aside, and make that be for you. I would try to start with at least 5 to 10% of what I make if you could afford it. Now, as far as insurance is concerned, if you don't have a lot of money, it's best to get the least expensive insurance that you can buy, which would be a term life policy. They're very inexpensive. You can get a nice amount of coverage for not a lot of money, and that's a good starter program. So that's why I would start for a person who's kind of cash strapped or doesn't make a lot of money.
Thank you so much for that. And another question is we've been hearing a lot about whole life insurance. And my question is there a certain tax bracket that you have to fall under to qualify for whole life insurance? And can you break that down to explain the difference between whole life insurance opposed to just getting started out with the insurance that you mentioned previously?
Yeah, well, the whole life insurance is just that. It's a policy that you pay for. You pay for it your whole life, and it covers you pretty much to age 100. But all insurance is basically term insurance. It's a little extra while you're younger. You're costing more than the policy costs. Raise so you any to like those because you know you're going to get paid if you have a whole life policy and you keep it up. You know the company's going to eventually have to pay it out. With a term policy, the term eventually ends. If it's a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, that comes to an end, and then you have to renew it, and then the price will end up being more than the whole life policy would have been in the first place. But if you're cash strapped, like I say, that's where you want to start. But now if you have the extra money, the whole life is a great alternative, especially if you're older. If you're over 50 and you're getting insurance, I would suggest getting something that you know is going to pay your family, is going to take care of the funeral, is going to take care of the family expenses for you as you get older.
Great. Thank you so much for the information. Okay, so my next question is one second. Why is insurance important? A lot of people, we know that it's important, but a lot of people think that it's not that important and that, it's no use in paying into it because you don't benefit from it. And so they don't prepare, they don't invest in insurance. So, what can you tell the people to explain to them the importance of starting a policy and maintaining the policy?
Well, it's very important, and it always has been, and it always will be. It all depends on who depends on your income. So that's
Mhm.
the first thing. If there's someone else who depends on you for support, then you need to be insured to take care of them. It's something that you do as a very selfless act. But you got to remember, if you have a wife or you have a husband or you have children, those people depend on your income. And if all of a sudden you check out, the need for that income didn't stop. So your job is to replace it, even if whether you're there or not. You have to be there. You have to make sure you make amends and you set aside the money for that. And insurance is a very inexpensive way to do that. It's not, and it's also for final expenses. Funerals are very expensive these days. They shot up in how much they cost doing COVID as well. So you want to make sure you have it at least for that. You want to make sure your bills are paid off if you pass away, so someone else doesn't have to pay for them. If you have a mortgage and you qualify with another person, well, if one of those persons is taken out, how can the other person pay that payment when they qualify with you? So you got to make sure that you either have that house paid off if you pass away, or you leave them enough money where they can continue to pay the payment while you're gone. Also, if you wanted your children to go to college, that's another reason you want to leave the money behind for them. But now there's a new type of policy that you can actually use that my company specializes in to actually help people prepare for retirement. So it's called an Index Universal Life program. You can fund that program, and then you can have, when you're at retirement age, you can get all your money back basically. You can have an income stream that'll last the rest of your life that you don't have to report to the IRS. So that's why a lot of single people are getting that in lieu of putting money in a 401k plan. Because the 401k plan is great. You know, they match it, maybe, and you're deferring the taxes. But eventually, when you take the money out, you have to pay the government. What's problematic about that is you don't know what the future taxes are going to be. And the government can raise the taxes anytime they get ready, and they often do. So it would be better if you have a program that when you get your income on that program, you don't have to give the government anything. You keep all the money for yourself, and now it's easier for you to budget, because your biggest bill in retirement is not going to be food, it's not going to be shelter, it's not going to be health care, it's going to be taxes. So let's just take that bill off the table if you have the right kind of program and it's set up correctly. So I just gave you a couple of different areas why insurance is important, whether you're married, single. There's all kind of ways that you can use it to be beneficial. It's also a wealth builder from generation to generation. I'm talking to a lady about it right now. She's insuring her parents. So she said when they pass away, she not only has enough money for the funeral, she has enough money to a couple of $100,000 to build wealth for the next generation. And if you have a selfless parent, they're willing to get approved for something like that because they want the next generation to be better off than they were. And this is how a lot of rich people stay rich, by the way, because there's no tax on this money. So that's why it's very important.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to switch it over to you, Miss Lynn, and tell us a little bit about therapy. Can you tell us why do you feel that therapy is so important for the Black community or just people, period?
I'm glad you asked that question. I always try to use examples within my own life just to kind of, you know, allow it to resonate a little different. So for me, growing up in church, and I'm sure a lot of us, grew up in faith-based communities and faith-based families, and the denomination that I grew up in, they were completely against counseling and therapy. And they believe that what happens in this house stays in this house, and pray everything, you take everything to God in prayer. And, we lived by that for so long. And I noticed that when I started counseling, there were so many people that were at one time, of course, kids that became traumatized adults because they never learned how to deal with things. They were always told, like men in our communities, amongst our culture, have always been told, no, you strong, you don't cry, you don't show your emotions. That's a sign of weakness. And through the years, you've seen women even take on that type of persona or that type of, attitude, like, I don't need help, I'm good, I'm going to keep it moving and keep it pushing. But I'm telling you, as we look at the conditions of our society, we see people are losing it by the second. And a lot of it has to do with people being afraid of being vulnerable and them being able to say, hey, I'm not okay. And I just think that amongst our community and within our culture, we really need to encourage people to seek help before we can become focused and, fueling our, being faith fueled and future focused. we got so many things on our plate that we're not attending to. That's why most of us, by the time someone passes away within our family, we're doing GoFundMe pages and we're frying chicken dinners and fish dinners at the churches because we're not prepared. And we're not prepared because we've just been taught to live in the moment and not really get down to the meat of the matter and deal with things head on so that we can clear our minds, speak with people that can assist us with compartmentalizing things that are going on, not just from things that have happened in our childhood, but things that we are encountering. Some of us, I can use myself as an example. I had a wonderful childhood. I didn't start experiencing trauma until I became an adult and got married. So, again, I think that it's just really important for us to see the need for healthy minds. And again, it does nothing for us to acquire all of this wealth, right? Or to get all of these different things going for us, and we're not well here. How many people have we seen as of late, recent, over the last few weeks and days that have committed suicide? And it's like, what happened to them? They seem to be doing okay. One of my friends dropped something in our chat. It's about 13 of us on there. And she said, don't forget about your strong friends because they're not always strong. You know what I mean? So I would say that we need to really encourage one another to seek the help that we need. I'm so grateful to God for the sister circle of friends that I have. Some have been with me since I was young. Some I've gotten along the way in my midlife. And now that I'm where I'm at, God has put new people in my life to check on me because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not always okay. But I thank God that I have my faith that centers me, and I've learned to speak out to say, hey, even as a we need counseling as well. We need help. Just imagine taking in all of other people's stuff. They're just dumping and dumping. If you're constantly pouring out, eventually your cup is going to be empty and you need somebody to re-pour and refuel you. So again, back to your original question, mental health and being mentally strong is vitally important. And I just would encourage us to encourage yourselves to get help if needed, encourage your family members to get help if needed, so we can be okay, so that we can get focused on our future and prepare ourselves the way that God intended for us to live, which is a good life, a plentiful life, a life in abundance.
And it's all,
Beautifully said.
yeah, it's a lot of resources out here that people really don't share. So if you ever need help with anything, you're struggling with mental health, you need shelter, you dial 211 and they have
Yes.
resources for you, right? So it's a lot of places you can go. I work for a couple of places. Um, and I know a couple of other places that have resources for homeless and things like that.
Yes.
And I know that there's a lot of places out there where you can get insured for your life, but is that the right place, right?
Right.
So you have to make sure whatever you do is something that's going to benefit you in the long run. Because some people are just out here to make a quick buck. I had an
Mhm.
insurance policy and a guy didn't write it up right, so I had Cedric look over it and he fixed it. Right? So, and then we have friends like, you, Lynn, and Ebony are really great, beautiful women. And we
Thank
can
you.
share, things and how we feel without being offended. And some people can't do that. And that's hard.
Mhm.
But that's growth and growing to
Right.
who you are and saying that, I hear you, I see you, I accept you, but you need to fix this.
Mhm.
Right? If your
Right.
life is not going to continue to prosper if you continue to stay stuck in who you are. So
That's
we
right.
growing every single day. No matter how old we are, we still have room for growth. And I think that's important. So one of the next questions that I wanted to ask you, Lynn, is so with children, I know we all have kids and we feel like sometimes it's not important. So we dismiss them and they deal with a lot of mental health issues. I worked in facilities where they were like, well, kids don't have stress. But we never know what people been through, right? So how
Mhm.
do you deal with a situation with a kid or your own child when they're going through something? How do you make them feel comfortable with coming
I
to you?
think absolutely. Thank you for asking that question because I'm raising a teenager now, and what's so interesting is that a lot of my friends, they started before I did. So I'm like one of the friends that started a little later. My friends, they have grandbabies, and they're like, oh, you'll get through it. But I remember some of them used to be like, you're gonna always love your kids, but it's gonna come times where you don't always like them. I was like, oh no. But kids, they go through so much. They grow through so much. And what and how we were raised back in the day, it was like our parents said what they said, and that was it, right? We didn't really have a platform or that safe haven to really come and talk to them about things that are important, like sex and drugs. And I mean, to them, it's like your mind shouldn't even be on stuff like that. But it's like, this is what we're dealing with. So just imagine, I graduated from high school in 1990. My daughter is in the ninth grade now. So what we did not have access to, which was phones and all of that stuff and the internet, now they have so much more stuff that they're exposed to, and they're constantly comparing themselves to other young people, or feeling like they have to be a part of everything that's culturally accepted just to feel a part of something. And I think it's so important that we affirm our kids and let them know daily how important they are and how loved they are, so that they don't have to go to these outside sources to try to be accepted or to be validated. And I think it's important for us to let our kids know, hey, like I tell my daughter, we are life partners. I'm rocking with you until the wheels fall off. I don't care if it's something that makes me mad, angry, want to fight, whatever. You come and you talk to me, because I have your best interest at heart. These people that you've been knowing for 2.7 seconds and only been on this earth for 1.2 seconds, trust me, they're not going to give you sound advice that can keep you from a catastrophe or something very bad happening to you. So I think just having that open line of communication that we probably more than likely did not have is completely important. Like, I'm the mother that check in with my daughter, her friends, my nieces and my nephews. It's nothing for me to say, where are your joy levels at today on a scale from 1 to 10? How you feeling? What's on your mind? You look a little bothered by something. Did anybody say something to you that was inappropriate? Did anybody do anything to you that was inappropriate? Did anybody make you feel like you didn't belong? So I talked to her about these things. So I think it's important again, for us to have that line of communication with these young people, to let them know, hey, I'm relatable. We got to start disclosing some things to these young folks, because when we come across as if we've not done anything wrong and that we've lived this perfect life, that causes them to be a little bit more resistant. And we really have to, the last point, we have to make sure that we let them know that there is always hope. I tell my daughter, there is always hope in every situation. You don't have to resort to feeling as if you are at your wit's end, or that you don't have anybody to talk to or anybody that loves you. Never cut yourself or harm yourself or feel like you need to take your life, because your life is worth living. You're important, not just to me, but the creator that created you. You're important to him most of all. And when he created you with destiny and purpose in mind. And in order for you to fulfill those things, you have to be here on earth in order to do that. So again, we have to just be here for our young people. I tell my daughter, if you need counseling and I'm not the one, I have insurance. It's okay. I'm not going to take it personal. I just want you to be able to sit down and talk to somebody that's not going to judge you. That's not going to be like, no, that's not right. They have no dog in the fight. They can help you to compartmentalize your thoughts and help you get on a healthy track and give you some resources and tools that you need to deal with where you are in your 15-year-old life. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that.
And I
And
just
we're
want to piggyback off of that, not to cut you off, I apologize. But as a parent, I just wanted to say that it is very important to give your children a voice and an opinion, and create a dynamic that they do feel comfortable to come and speak to you. Also, it's very important as parents to validate the children just for being themselves. They don't need to earn an A. They don't need to do anything remarkable just for you to let them know how important they are, how much they matter, and how much you love them. It's also very important to let them know, like you said, that we're human, and as parents, we make mistakes as well. And that's why I feel that therapy is most important for the parent so that they can identify when their child is in the need as well. Like an old saying used to say that my grandmother would say, the sins of the parents fall on the child. And many of us have studied in college epigenetics, how something that affected your grandmother could possibly affect generations down the line. And that's with trauma as well. So it's very important for us to be able to identify that pain within ourselves so that trickle effect doesn't affect our children. And therapy is a non-biased opinion. It's like speaking to someone who isn't going to judge you and who is going to tell you basically that help you work your problems out, but really it's you working your problems out because they're helping you to identify the triggers and the red flags and the things that you may look past that are affecting you and keeping you in those same cycles that you can't break. Again, as African Americans, we tend to learn how to cope with situations that we shouldn't have to cope with, things that we should fix. We think that it's okay if this happens, like you said, we'll just pray about it, or we'll just fast and meditate and we'll hope that it goes away. But things need to be fixed, and it's important to consult a therapist. Like you said, again, you can go to 211 Medicare CA coverage. They also offer mental health now. It's very tangible and easy to get because so many people are in dire need of it. And so I just want to encourage everyone that is watching to know that it's okay to need it. It doesn't mean you have any type of deficiency. It doesn't mean that you're less than. It just means that you love yourself enough to want to seek the help so that you can be a better parent, so that you can raise successful children that don't have to heal from the trauma that has been passed down for generations that was passed down to you. So,
Exactly. And um, you don't have to go in person. You can do telehealth, you can do Zoom, you can talk over the phone. So they make it comfortable for you. And it is very important. I also have one of a therapist in the audience, Daryl Sewell. Um, he's a very, great therapist, and he works with children as well.
Can
So,
I
but
ask you guys a question real quick based on what Miss Lynn was just sharing? The scripture says in Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you a future and a hope, right? So since we're talking about the future, but
Yes,
like you said, a person can't focus on their future if they're hopeless today.
that's right.
You got to fix
That's
the
right.
hope part so they'll think about, oh yeah, I'm gonna make it to the future, so I need to prepare. So my question for you guys is: do you think that the stigma of getting counseling or therapy is diminishing in our community, where it's not a big deal for people to do it?
to a certain extent, but still,
Yes.
people still have some hangups,
Mhm.
about it. But I think it's good to have these kind of conversations to make them feel more comfortable about seeking help, because it was mine too. Like, I don't need therapy. I can fix myself. People think that. I have a friend, I can talk to my friends, but then you dumping all this stuff on your friend, right? And then they need somebody to dump it on, and you guys just passing the trauma back and forth to each other without seeking that professional help. So that's kind of tough. So I think it is kind of getting a little, better in our
Yes.
community, but not fast enough.
right.
I would definitely agree. I would to piggyback on what Drea said. I definitely don't believe that it's one of those pink elephants in the room anymore.
Mhm.
But I do, being in this field, I see a lot of resistance, and I'm hoping that that will diminish even more, because again, when we see how people are just like ticky ticky boom, like, and that's not, to make light of the situation, but there are so many people that are at an explosive point in their
Mhm.
lives because they suppress and they don't show up for themselves, they don't know how to show up for themselves. All they ever known was to try to scratch to survive and just, barely make it by and not really embrace the importance of self-care. And I just believe that the more we get the word out and the more we encourage even our friends and our family, to just get help if needed and to not feel embarrassed or ashamed about it. And it's not, that you don't trust God. It's not that you're not spiritually connected. I believe that not only are we supposed to be spiritually connected, but that we should also have some type of common sense. We can't operate in the spirit realm at all times. Sometimes we need to know how to take natural resources and tools and do what we need to do, because I do believe that there are some things that will show up for us, but sometimes we got to show up for ourselves as well. We got to vote for us and just show up. And I think that the process will begin to start. And once we trust the process, that eventually in time, the more we're able to work through things and really deal with the truth of where our reality really lies, we will be okay. We
But
are a
that's the
strong
issue
folk.
too within our community, the trust, right? So
Yeah.
you befriend someone, you share all this information just in turn for them to turn around and use that against you. So that's kind of tough to trust the next person, right? So we were talking earlier about having discernment, and and that's very important. You want to try to give people grace or give them the benefit of the doubt and not judge them on what others did, but sometimes it's kind of difficult if you continue to have every relationship is trauma, 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 trauma somewhere. So when does it stop? So then you start looking for these different signs. I might say something or do something that triggers you from another relationship, right? And then because we're not communicating this, which I appreciate you ladies, because we have great communication, right?
Wow.
But if you don't have that with that person, then that causes a bigger issue. And
Mhm.
then you're just like, you need an outlet, some kind of hobby, something. So we have poetry, myself and Ebony. And speaking of poetry, we're going to take a little poetry break real quick. And Ebony Floor is going to bless the mic with one of her poems. So let's
Amen.
go.
Let's
Well,
go.
you
Go
threw me on in the mix real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
So I was looking for my poem on mental health, and that poem came about because in therapy, um my therapist knew I was a poet, so she would encourage me to write about just different things that affected me. And she would give me homework, and she told me to write about mental health one day. And so I wrote about Piaget's theory and how it affects us in unconditioned stimuluses and things of that nature, but I can't find it tonight for some reason. So I'm gonna say that let's see what I'll read tonight. Give me grace and a quick second to reflect on the poetry. All right. So this one here is called What Do You Say of a Broken Rose? What do you say of a broken rose? Of a rose broken? Do you throw it away or trim it and place it in a glass vase at once on display? Or a disgrace that lies in trash cans filled with rubbish? Can you see her wilting, layers of silk and chlorophyll leaves that become nothing? But depending on the hands and eyes that may lay upon her, she will bloom again. One must be a believer, a mother, a nurser to health, a rescuer. The other is not a dreamer. She cannot see what lies ahead. She cannot remember the beauty now reeking of death and dying, defying the rose that once stood tall, thrusting towards the sun, now facing the dust from which it grew. I was the tossed away rose. I was the broken stem. I was the empty garden, vast and longing for love. I was the discarded rose, unable to cope with the plucking. And whom was my gardener, you may ask? Who watered me? Who picked me out of trash cans? Who grabbed me out of streets piled to capacity while I wept? Who saved me? It was sun and rain and lights. It was fight. It was surrender at times. It was divine intervention and wishing to grow towards the sun again. It was the most high that was my friend. It was flat soda in green cans that read ginger ale added, making the water a little sweet, rebirthing a new me. I grew and knew that flat soda and sun and the most high one would be my remedy. Towards the sky I'd go, free from bondage and expectations, free from misery, with peace encompassing and grief dissipating. Slowly but steadily arose, crooked, growing out of concrete. Would you marvel at nature's way of living, a constant of giving back to roses, discarded and thrown, not grown at home in God's secret garden? I am a chosen rose, unplucked. I forever grow. I'm sow and reap and good sleep and a thriving community of love and dozens of roses that bloom again, brown from the soil. A rose grows from ghettos to mansions on mountains, looking out to sea at sunsets that rise on other sides. Clearly, a marvelous journey of birthing a new seed to bloom, consumed with living when thriving is much better. A rose grows unplucked, and you stuck in between, cutting her down or watching her appear in this very spot every year without fail. A smell that lingers until spring arrives, or you could just leave her in this pile to die and wilt until she is no more. But then again, that would be like having the key to inevitably let you into heaven's door and never entering. Behold the rose that grows out of ghetto and concrete streets, blooming beyond capacity, reminding me of a new day. I found a new way to grow, focusing on my own approval. So, what do you say of a broken rose? I say, let her grow. Thank you.
Woo!
Ah, Miss Ebb and Flow.
Yes. Thank
Beautiful.
you for that piece.
Thank you. You guys are welcome.
Yes, yes. Next question. How important is self awareness, self care, and mental health to you? That's for everybody. Who wants to start?
Ladies first.
I'll go ahead and go since the mic is still a little hot, right? I think that therapy is most important. Despite the bias in the community, and the, everybody thinks, you shouldn't go. It is most important. Therapy saved my life. I was tired of being tired, and I decided that I wanted something different. But it was hard for me to understand at first, like we spoke about, how to trust a stranger with my most, you know, intense hurt and pain and things that I never share with anyone besides the Most High. I feel like once you take that first step and you step out on faith, you'll figure it out. You'll end up where you need to be. It's important to find someone that you can relate to, though, that can understand your journey coming from where you come from, and that can give you advices that you can really take and apply in life. And again, like anything, is one step at a time, one day at a time. And yeah, so it's really, really important. Again, especially as parents, it's important to heal so that you don't um, burden your children with the past trauma that you've experienced as an adult, that you may not have even known was a problem, because growing up in your family or your household, that was the norm, right? But you have to get to a point where you want better. You want a happy life. You deserve to wake up and be happy for no reason. You know what I mean? And it's good to identify that, you know, sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's things that need to be treated by a doctor, but most times when you get to that therapist, you can be directed in the right way that you need to go to get the help that you need, and to be a better person and a better you, and to come into the world and, you know, be the best person that you can be. So yeah, therapy is very dire. It's really important.
I agree with that. And also meeting people where they are, right? So a lot of times people always apologize for certain things. I'm like, you don't have to apologize for how you feel. That's the way you feel, right? And we can't keep making people pay for their mistakes over and over again. That causes more trauma. So I'm not going to put on you just because you did something yesterday and keep reminding you tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That causes more trauma for you. Just trying to hear that person out and communicate with them. So with my children, we all know kids are going to mess up in school, but I always told them, tell me the truth. I'm always on your side. I'm here to support you. You are number one to me. So when I go in to fight for you, I know what I'm fighting for. Right. So we had that open communication, no matter what it is. And most of the time it was small things. But just for them to feel safe and know that I'm not going to always get in trouble because this adult says something. Adults lie too, right? So we have to make sure we have that open communication and not continue, like Ebony said, to bring on the trauma from, you know, our childhood into our kids' lives. And I felt like that was very, very important for me as well.
I think both of you ladies made great points, and I can definitely relate to all of what you have stated. Um, it was something you just said, Drea, when you said we have to get back to meeting people where they are, or get to the point to where we meet people where they are. And in order for us to do that, there's a certain part of us that have to extend a God-like grace. We have to carry a God-like grace factor about us, right? Not only do we have to do the God-like grace, but there has to be a measure of human grace that is extended. And I think we've kind of gotten away from this whole sensitivity or being connected to humankind or being a human being. Um, you know, all I know to do is kind of reflect on what is ingrained in me. And there is a scripture that basically reminds us that in the last days that the love of many will wax cold. And we see that there are so many people that you would think is just walking around without a heart and a soul because there's no human connection. The things, the volatile and diabolical things and evil things that people are doing to one another. It's like, oh no, they couldn't have a soul. Like they could not have a heart. But I just believe that there is a certain thing that we have to do to come back to some type of connection. And that's blending the two graces, which is the godlike grace and the human grace. And to the point that, or the question that Drea brought up, self-awareness is so important. That's a form of acknowledgement. You knowing and acknowledging what's right and what's wrong, where you're strong and where you're not strong. And there's a 3-part curriculum that I did some years ago, and I'm still building on it because I really want to do it in a workshop and a seminar setting. And it has to do with feeling, dealing, and healing, and how important it is to our continual evolving as humans. And to really be future focused, we got to deal with some stuff because when you think about it, we're like all over the place in our lives. We got our hands in so much stuff. And it's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes those are distractions to keep us off course and not really getting focused on what we need to be paying attention to. And so for me, again, the self-awareness and acknowledgement piece is the feeling part. Then we have to not just feel it, we got to deal. It's hard to sometimes accept it and deal with it. Dealing is hard because sometimes you got to go beyond what your current experiences or circumstances are. And you got to kind of go back to the foundation or to the root of what caused you to be where you currently are. So sometimes you got to dig up in that soil, that those weeds and all of that kind of stuff. And it's not always the prettiest thing. Like our sister Ebony talked about, that rose, before it blooms into that, there's some other type of stuff that's going on underground before it blooms into that. Right? And so the last part, so the feel, then we deal. And before we can get to the focus part, we got to heal. Another thing that my friend puts in our chat, we got to be kind to ourselves. How are we being kind to ourselves? By feeling, and stop saying, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not still traumatized by that thing that happened to me when I was a kid. I'm not traumatized from my divorce or this death or whatever it is, or my finances plummeting. I'm not affected by that. We got to acknowledge it and be like, okay, deal with it so we can heal. So again, we got to feel, we got to deal, and then we have to heal. And I think all of that is packaged into the importance of the whole mental health piece. Loving ourselves enough, being kind enough to ourselves to make sure that we vote for us, we show up for us, and get the necessary help that's needed. Pull on your resources, pull on the people you know. We can't keep making excuses. Well, I don't know anything about that. You can Google anything nowadays. And before we get off of this chat tonight, I want to make sure that I drop a couple of numbers for the National Suicide Prevention line, as well as domestic violence, because that's something that we don't speak too often. So that's just my point of view and my aspect and my opinion of the question that was asked. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. And if anybody in the audience have a question, you can put your question in the chat and we'll answer it. Okay, so
You mentioned about self-care, and now I want to circle back to one of Ebb and Flow's scriptures. She said was the sins of the fathers are visited upon the sons to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me.
Mm.
What we've been taught about this is that it means the sins of the fathers and the mothers become the tendencies of the children. So in other words, what they did do, you might do, or your children might do, because it's in your bloodline, like you guys talked about earlier. So first of all, you got to be self-aware of what your family lineage is. What kind of problems did these generations have before you? And that's why it's good to go to family reunions and actually talk to these people. Now, tell me the truth about Uncle Fred. What was he really like? Tell me the truth now. Don't hide it. Was he an alcoholic? Was he a wife beater? Did he go to jail? Just tell me the truth, because that could be a tendency that I might have to deal with. But if you don't tell me, I won't know how to work with it. But now the question was about self-care. Once you're aware that you're having some trauma, some tension, and you don't have time to get to the counselor yet, you got to practice some things that are going to make you feel good now. That's what I call it. So you already know what some of those things are. For me, it might be, okay, go take a walk out in the park someplace in the sunshine. That would make me feel better immediately. Go take a walk by the ocean. We have the ocean right here in LA. Most of us don't even go look at it most of the time. But if you just go take a walk by the ocean, it just look at how vast that is. That just makes you feel better. I had some recent little tension a couple of weeks ago. I had to go get a massage to get the tension out of my body, right? Well, if you know those that's what you were asking about, self-care. Well, that's just some quick examples. First of all, you got to be self-aware what some of your triggers are, what some of your family lineage challenges are, and if you don't have time to get to the counselor right away, until you get there, do what makes you feel good. If that's going to get you some ice cream, go to a movie by yourself, whatever it takes to make you feel good. You can change your mood just by practicing these self-care things, but you got to know what they are, and you got to know it's okay to do them. You don't have to feel guilty because you want to go take the afternoon off and go see some film that just came out and nobody knows you're in there. Okay, but that makes you feel good, so now you can deal the next day when you get back to work.
Yeah, a healthy coping skill, an outlet,
Coping skill, that's good.
Yes.
Coping skill.
Definitely.
So we have that, right? So we write, we do poetry, we come here every Thursday. We share.
And we give each other grace,
Yes,
right? We
Exactly.
give each other grace, we lift each other up, and
Mhm.
we allow ourselves to feel what we need to feel in that moment, but we don't become
And let it
trapped,
go, right?
which
And
is
we
very
don't hold on to that, right? Because
important.
if I'm upset and I'm mad, it's not hurting you, it's hurting me,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm dealing with that internally. And that causes other conditions, health conditions, and things like that. And that's what people don't understand, right? So it's a lot of things that we have to practice and learn how to just let things go and be calm, you know.
And, those words matter.
Hmm.
Words matter. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
just when Ebb and Flo was doing her poem, I was like, yeah, okay. They just changed my attitude
Yeah.
just listening to it because the words make a difference. They make a difference.
They do. They do.
Lynn, did you write a poem for us?
No, ma'am.
I have
I
wrote a
know
poem
Miss Dre
today.
got one. Don't you have one, Miss Dre?
Yes, Miss Drea, we're gonna bring
Yes,
you to the
I
mic to
wrote this
bless us
poem real
tonight.
quick. Yeah, real quick today about the topic. And I had another one that I had wrote earlier, but this one is we need wellness in our present life. Out here living for the right now with no plan in sight. Our people are dying left and right, addicted to the fast life, always putting off everything into tomorrow. I'm going to look into that plan. I heard about insurance. I don't need that, man. I'm young. I'm alive. I'm going to live a long time. Until next week, tragedy. The phone rings. Cries of terror, not my baby. Bodies lowered into the ground, and now everybody weak, crying and yelling while my baby had to go. Standing on corners and begging for money, praying in churches for grace. Ending our existence, finding ourselves in liquor stores, giving up on life, no plan in sight. Time to focus on life. Plan for the future. Let's get it right. Yes, you. Let's live this life with the plan and sign up.
Go, Drea. Ah,
Wow.
nice. Awesome.
Thank you so much for that much needed piece, Queen. We
You're
really appreciate it.
welcome.
You just did that just right before the show.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys are awesome. You can do that.
Yes.
So before we leave, I just wanted to ask you again, Miss Lynn, what do you think is an important element of therapy that has personally helped you heal some of your clients?
So, one of the things that I have recommended, and I even did it for myself, and it was the empty chair therapeutic approach, because there are so many people that carry so much resentment and anger from people that have betrayed them, that have passed on, or that they may feel that they can't confront, and that they're carrying this baggage because these are unreleased feelings that they've never had a chance to speak and give words to. So I oftentimes recommend sit a chair in front of you, write a letter, and you read that letter as if you're speaking to that individual. And once you've said it, you can scream it however you got to get it out. And afterwards, you discard it and you try not to go back to that and pick that back up. Because sometimes you will never be able to confront someone or persons, a person or persons that have affected your life to the degree to where you've been stuck in trauma. You may not have had an opportunity to have that conversation, but we can't keep allowing that to be the thing that keeps us stuck and never moving forward. Like we're in the same cycle of hatred and bitterness and not trusting people because of what someone else or some other people did to us. But just getting in that, even if it's not a chair, just reading a letter out loud, putting that person's name in there as if you're addressing that individual. This works for a lot of people. And for some people, I'm telling you, it's about a mind shift. If you really want to release that and you're saying, I'm not crying, not one more tear over this. I'm not passing up another opportunity behind this because I don't trust, because I don't this. Write it out, say it, deal with that raw emotion, whatever that is, burn it, tear it, flush it down the toilet, whatever you got to do, and say, I will no longer give you or them the power to control my life and to determine if whether or not I reach the peak of happiness. I am healed, I am whole, I am complete. I am healed, I am empowered, and I am restored. So that's one of the ones that I use often. Used it for myself, recommended it for others, and it have drastically changed their lives for the better. And just write. Everyone may not be a poet, but write your feelings out. Journal. Even if you, because sometimes we can go through so much trauma, Ebony, and I'm going to be done in a second. Sometimes we can go through so much trauma, we don't even want to repeat what has happened. But you need to write it out to get it out because you're so ashamed of whatever it could have been. You don't even want to utter the words because it will constantly just send off as some type of signal that will take you back to that place as if it just happened. But just write. For me, music is everything. I grew up in church. When I'm having a bad day, oh God, let me put on some worship music or just some jazz music. Or just sometimes, look, when I had a 15-year-old, listen, she loved Jesus and God, but I'm going to tell you, she liked to hear all that foolishness. Sometimes I put that on and I'll just dance in the car with her. She start laughing. That frees me. Back to what Cedric said. Self-care is definitely, something like if you can't talk to somebody, having me a cold Pepsi, that's therapy for me. Just driving in my car, being away from everybody that needs me in my house, that's therapy for me, So it's just find something that you can escape and just really just let it out and just come back and refocus and be like, you know what? I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all
Thank you
right.
so much for that. Yes, I agree 100%. And
Yes.
then, Cedric, tell us, everyone, where they can find you to get your services. Give us a list of everything that you do.
Okay, primarily it's retirement planning. That's the primary thing. So I sit down with people, talk to them about what their goals are, what they want to accomplish, when they want to accomplish it. And unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but you end up doing counseling with people, even doing that, because a lot of people's emotions attached to the money, right? They get a lot of stress over anything when they're dealing with finances. So my goal is kind of take that stress on and show them, look, let's put a plan together. If they see the road that they can run on, they know, you mean if I just run down this road, I'm going to get there, right? I say, right, I'm going to set the road up for you. I'm going to lay the pavement for you. I'll show you exactly what you need to do, and you're going to understand it so you can get to where you want to get. Also, if a person's has bought a house and they want to, get a policy to pay their mortgage off, I can do that. I do college programs for children. Person can use the policy to save for a child's college education. The great thing about using insurance to do that is it doesn't go into FAFSA calculations. Everything goes into FAFSA calculations, but that. So that means it won't disqualify you from getting scholarships or other financial aid if you have money inside a policy. So far they're not asking for that. So that's another thing that I can do. Also, as I mentioned before about the Alzheimer's, I also do long-term care, whole life policies where people can buy this policy. So when they get old, if they have to go to a nursing home where they need a nurse to come in because now they're not able to take care of themselves anymore, they need assistance. They can actually use this policy to actually pay for the assistance. So the policy will pay them, and then they can hire whoever they want. It's not something where you got to make, file claims like you got to do with a health insurance policy. This one pays the policyholder if they qualify for it with a chronic illness, and then they can hire and fire whoever they want to manage their own care along with their family. And that's something that's going to be more and more important because people are just living longer. There's a person I know that was in her 80s. She had a heart attack, drove herself to the hospital, told her she's having a heart attack, and they gave her bypass surgery. So she ended up living another 10 years. So what happens if you live that long? My My mom lived till she was 99 years old. So I'm not expected to live that long, but what if I do? I need to care to be able to do that. So there's all kind of ways that I can help people in these different type of areas, but that's just to name a few for time's sake.
You didn't give us a website,
Oh
phone
yeah,
number.
future futurefinancialconcepts.com is my website. Future Financial Concepts. There's also a way there that you can click if you want to contact me for an appointment or a consultation. I have a toll-free number, 866-526-5521 if you want to call me directly. I also have a Facebook page, Future Financial Concepts Facebook page. So those are different ways that I can be contacted.
Thank you so much for that.
Well, it's been a beautiful night tonight. Thank you guys for all of the information. I'm sure that it reached the people out in the poetry world, on the YouTube channel, and everywhere. We are so grateful for these much needed discussions and for the time that you guys took tonight. I'm going to leave us with this one word for the people, and it's called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the rewiring of the brain, which means whichever past traumas or anything you've been through, you can condition yourself by changing your mindset to start a new life, to have a better life, and to fix your mind to be able to conceive everything that you could ever dream of. I just want you all to know that you can start now. Today is not too late. You can start in this moment. You can wait until you wake up in the morning, but why? Put yourself first, plan for your future, be present, get the help that you need, and know that there are people in the world who do care and who want to see you succeed and win. So, like always, we're going to send you off with love and light, and we'll see you here next week at 8 o'clock.
Don't log off, guys.
Make sure that you like and subscribe and meet us next week on the West Side.
Thank you so much for joining us. Stay on, guys. Don't log